Emeka halted in the corridor, heart stuttering like a broken drum. Through the gauzy veil of the sliding glass door, he spotted Kioma and Titi leaning close under moonlight. Their wine glasses clinked softly, a brittle echo in the hush. He held a tray of candles, oblivious. Then her laughter sliced through the air. "He's just insurance until I'm ready." Emeka's breath stalled. He should have thundered in or trembled. Instead, he merely watched, surveying his own betrayal as an outsider. No words escaped. He slipped away, letting the door whisper shut, mind untangling a new resolve. Silent, dryly, finally. Emeka spent the next morning drafting an email to Uche, his lawyer, though the message consisted of a single line: proceed. He sipped bitter coffee, wryly noting its resemblance to his mood. He'd quietly rerouted their joint account into a trust, revoked Kioma's co-signing rights without fanfare. When she discovered the first declined charge, a taxi ride to her design studio, she blamed the bank. Emeka only offered a calm nod, as though he'd merely misread an account number. Deep down, he savored the shift. He was no longer background scenery in her drama. In that silence, he tasted freedom. 2 nights later, Emeka received a panicked DM from Efioma, Kioma's assistant. She wrote she hadn't meant to alarm him, her guilt tipped in every line. Emeka stared at his phone, amused by her terror. He didn't reply. Instead, he traced the ledger he'd assembled, invoices he'd paid, rents he'd covered, receipts Kioma assumed he'd never notice. Each entry was a domestic ambush, repaid in quiet detachment. He poured another glass of water, noting the cordial drip of the tap. It reminded him that even the smallest leak, if ignored, can flood a house. Kioma confronted Emeka at dinner, her voice brittle. "Did you see that email from Uche?" She brandished her phone like evidence. He glanced up with faux surprise. "I'll check in the morning," he said, as though she'd asked about the weather. She muttered about independence she'd requested. He raised an eyebrow. "Yes, you've always wanted independence," he replied, voice polite. He turned back to his laptop, leaving her to stew in the stew she'd prepared. He found the whole exchange entertaining, like watching a poorly directed play, only now he was the lead, not the understudy. Emeka summoned his younger brother Kelechi under the pretense of a casual lunch. Kelechi arrived late, juggling a broken phone and a haunted look. Emeka served jollof rice, then dropped his news. He was dissolving his marriage. Kelechi's jaw clicked. "What about Kioma?" he asked, half protective, half incredulous. Emeka shrugged dryly. She never quite appreciated the menu. For once, Kelechi faltered, then confessed his own secret. He'd borrowed money from Emeka years ago and never repaid. Emeka smiled thinly. Revenge didn't require drama, just precise bookkeeping. The brothers sat in shared silence, each savoring the peculiar comfort of mutual betrayal. The new subplot unfurled when Kioma's best friend Amaka revealed at brunch that a rival designer offered Kioma seed funding for her studio, as long as she cut ties with Emeka. Emeka overheard the tail end. "She's free at last." He pressed his lips together. In that moment, he realized Kioma's ambitions extended beyond mere singlehood. She craved control over his fortune and her own reinvention. He finished his avocado toast, offered polite congratulations, then left without a farewell. His exit felt like a finishing move, crisp and intentional. That evening, Emeka discovered a second line of credit under his name, 79,000 naira. Defaulted. Fraud, Uche had called it. Emeka reclined in his study chair, voice dry. Well played. He drafted a counterclaim, pitched it as a gift to Kioma. No criminal charges, just a tidy offset in their impending divorce. He reviewed her forged signatures with impassive eyes, as if inspecting a poorly drawn sketch. Every forged initial felt like chalk carved into wood, brittle and destined to crumble. He closed the file, muttering, "You can't build a mansion on lies." 1 month earlier, swapped event, Emeka had quietly transferred the condo deed into his sole name. Kioma's mistaken assumption of co-ownership had blinded her to its legal reality. She'd boasted about selling their place, unaware it was never hers. Emeka observed her plating dinner, illusory calm masking her panic this time. He poured wine without an apology. "Our next move," he'd said, "belongs to whoever holds the title." The delayed reveal felt poetic, like a novel's final chapter placed mid-plot. He savored her unease, a long ascent to clarity now reached. Kioma's studio fob ceased working the following Wednesday. She attempted turfed entry, pressing the pad as if it might yield. Emeka, in his office, watched security logs ping on his screen. He raised a hand in mock apology. "Maintenance glitch," he murmured when she confronted him that evening. "They'll fix it." She glared, voice trembling, as though he'd stolen her last oxygen mask. Emeka offered a sympathetic nod. "Your independence, remember?" She stomped away, and in that tap dance of fury, he acknowledged the absurdity. He'd engineered her frustration to purge his own grief. 2 weeks in, Kioma sat silent at the breakfast table, eyes fixed on a single egg. Emeka slid a manila folder across the marble. Without looking, she asked, "You reviewed my proposal?" He cleared his throat. "Concerned about fidelity," he said, voice low. She unfolded the folder, brows knitting as she read fraud documents, bank statements, and forged lines. He watched her face shift from indignant to hollow. "You thought I'd never read between the lines," he continued. "But I did." She trembled. Emeka stood, pocketing his last card. Quiet defiance. Final act of emancipation. Kioma turned to him, tears threatening, real or stage, he couldn't tell. She begged forgiveness, citing wine and venting. Emeka cocked an eyebrow, as though evaluating rotten fruit. "You didn't slip," he said. "You chose." Her pleas ricocheted against his equanimity. He offered none of the drama she craved. Instead, he walked past, heading to his study where Uchi's divorce drafts waited. In that silent retreat, he realized he never needed her approval, just the courage to close the door. The final dissolution occurred on a Friday, papers served with military precision. Kioma neither yelled nor wailed. She simply folded the documents. As she left with a single tote bag, Emeka noticed the creak of the front door hinge. He didn't follow or bid farewell. Instead, he locked the door behind her and then deadbolted it. He lingered in the echoey foyer, savoring the hush that followed her departure. The absence of her drama felt almost sacred, like the moment after a storm when the air tastes clear and sharp, free of all unsettled questions. Emeka retreated to a lakeside cabin he'd acquired with his divorce proceeds. He painted again, brush meeting canvas with deliberate strokes. Each sunset he watched as though studying a philosophical text, the sky's fiery end, offering lessons in surrender. He reconnected with his sister, Ifunanya, sharing laughter over music he'd abandoned in youth. At night, he wrote wry journal entries about Kioma's misadventures, dry commentary that read like aphorisms. Solitude, he discovered, was not loneliness, but a vantage point. From there, he surveyed his life with clarity, a man unburdened, expanding into the space left behind. Months later, Emeka learned through Ifeoma that Kioma struggled. Her boutique limped on. Her new investor vanished. The news arrived like a footnote in a diary. He paused, recalling her ambition, then turned his gaze back to the canvas before him. No triumph danced in his chest. Instead, he felt only bemusement. The world doesn't need his commentary. It continues. He dipped his brush into cobalt blue, painting a solitary boat drifting at dawn, a symbol of detachment and gentle progression. In that cool pigment, he found peace. Life's currents carry us all, eventually, to calmer shores. Emeka's last journal entry read, "In the end, I wasn't her safety net or her exit strategy. I was simply free." He signed it with a flourish, then sealed the notebook in a cedar box. That night, he slept without nightmares or second guesses. Outside, the lake lay still, reflecting lantern light like scattered stars. He rose at dawn and stepped barefoot onto the porch. The silence was no longer heavy. It was home. He inhaled deeply, wryly grateful for the lessons learned too early. Then he painted his final stroke, a horizon unbound, infinite. If you like this story like video, subscribe so that you do not miss the next video. Thank you.